The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Pennsylvania High School Football Report podcast. I am Brian Linder, here with Dan Sostek, Eric Epler. Dan, let them hear your voice.
Howdy. Apparently I'm on a lag, but we'll see how long the lag is.
Eric, let them hear your voice.
Hello, world.
So now you guys know who they are. If you were Josh Oswald or Carolyn Ford, and you're somebody who listens to the podcast every week, you already knew. Eric's shaking his head because I give him the shout out. Eric, they're our most consistent listeners every week. I always hear from them, get the feedback from them. They're here, you know.
Sure.
They listen. Got to give love to the listeners. So, and it's football season. You know, we got scrimmages this weekend.
Yeah.
You know, we've been out and about. You guys have been writing about all kind of guys. Let's jump right in. You know, we won't get into, or maybe we should. You know, I think we should address the elephant in the room, which is Dan has not scored a touchdown in the last 3 quarters against me in EA Sports College Football.
Oh, I can't. You are like the most pathetic person with this stuff I've ever heard in my life. Like it's beyond embarrassing. You lie every single time, and like because you
Like, touchdown against me the last 3 quarters in EA Sports College Football.
This wasn't even true. Like you're just like lying about this stuff. This is so crazy.
Yeah, you kicked 2 field goals against me in the last 3 quarters.
That's not what I'm not even. This is like genuinely like you need to go see some sort of like health person. You have this urge to lie to people about like playing a video game. It's
Dan,
like it's.
I'm lying about that, Dan.
Yeah, you are literally lying about I scored a touchdown, and you
pushed out over the last 3 quarters.
You're first off, even if that were true, which it's not.
It is.
It's not. I scored in the second quarter, but even if it were true, that's not how football works. And if you think that's how football works, that explains why you think the Colts are going to win 11 games this year. Because you think that if you do all right in the last 3 quarters, you win a football game. But secondly,
I'm just.
You're one of the worst college football players I've ever seen. So,
Dan, we're going to live stream. There's going to be a lot. It's going to be a PennLive event. You know, before season here, we do a lot of live games. We're going to live stream you and I playing best out of 3. We're going to have somebody, my guy Marcus Quaker, who listens all the time. We're going to have him come in and be an impartial announcer. I know I say impartial, but I know Marcus is on Team Linder. You know. He used to tell me I could beat Nebby in basketball too. So,
well, yeah. I mean, you just there's something like deep down that you feel the need that when you don't win something to lie and like couch it, make excuses.
Me, but I'm not lying.
You're literally lying. So, yeah.
I get credit for beating me. Why would I lie about that?
That's first off, you didn't. You opened it by saying that you won the last 3 quarters, and secondly, you do the same thing with picks. You claim that you're the pick god when Ep is the clear. Oh no, that's a different thing. But
I went 18-0 1 week in picks. Did you know that, Dan?
I think this is what our listeners want us to hear.
Hey, they don't mind a little conflict. They don't mind a little drama. It's what makes things good. And we're talking about the hottest game going right now. I'll give you credit. You got Utah State rolling, right?
Yeah, I mean, we lost in the semifinal, but we'll be back.
Dan and I, Epler's over here. He's just like, I'll talk about techno ball, but Dan,
yeah,
Epler, you don't understand how involved this game is.
Listen, it's the thing is, I think this is why everyone's having seizures and stuff. You know, it's too fast. Number one is it's too fast twitch for me. You know, I go bonkers when I play something like this. Like I said, like double dribble back in the day was about the limit of my brain.
Well, you know what? You'd probably be able to beat Brian in this game because he's really bad at it. So,
yeah. Well, here's the thing, and I think what most people miss is I utilize the tight end position a lot. So it sneaks up on people. They don't expect, because everybody wants to throw deep and all this crap.
Well, not in college football. In the college football, you got to use intermediate routes.
I lull you to sleep, Dan. I hit you in the seams.
Yeah.
And no one expects it.
Yeah. Well,
I'm a tackle.
You hit singles, right? 8-yard gains.
Exactly. I play small ball.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. I take tempo. I play small ball. Next thing you know, you lose 21-10.
Yeah, I'm paid. That's how Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. So I'll take it.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, stay tuned, Dan. Big broadcast event. We're going to figure it out, Dan. We're going to play.
I don't think I'll fight you anymore.
And I'm sure, Dan, it's been 3 quarters now. I'm sure you're going to find the end zone soon enough. That's the EA Sports college football update heading into this thing. So I'll tell you what, guys, let's get to our guests this week. We have a very special guest.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.
Hey, all right, Dan, we're here with our special guest, our new sports editor at PennLive and the Harrisburg Patriot News, Austin Hertzog. Austin, we've been rolling out tons of previews for high school football. We've had Mid-Penn All-Star teams. I still owe you an All-PA All-Star team. So I got behind them, but we will have that out before the start of the season. The guys have been rolling out these divisional breakdowns for the Mid-Penn. We're going to have some more statewide stuff coming. We've been busy, and we're going to be busy. And you're coming in here, man. You got us rocking and rolling. First of all, man, how's it feel to be here at PennLive, and what do we got coming for the people?
Yeah, it is great to be here, and you are so right, Brian, about the amount of content coming out of the PennLive crew. This is as Bill Belichick would have said, no days off. It seems like with our crew here, the story volume is coming fast and furious here this week with all the divisional breakdowns, the divisional all-stars, preseason MVPs. I'm really just taking the baton from you in that regard, especially on the high school football front. So really continuing all the great things that you and the team has established over the last number of years, and then just trying to level it up in different ways, trying to find new ways to connect with our readers. And I think looking ahead this year, we're going to continue to do great things with podcasts, but also try to take it to the next level on the video side of things too. We got live streams that we're going to be producing at least 1 or potentially 2 per week every Friday night. I mean, we've got that big one coming week 2. We've got the live stream for it, which is going to be a good one. Obviously, Harrisburg and McDevitt is what I'm talking about there. That's one that I certainly have my eye on. And also, we're gonna reveal to the people here, Brian. Friday nights, you and I are going to be doing that Manning Cast style watch along, where I have big dreams for it, and I think it could be a really awesome thing. Watching along with Brian and I, who have decades, unfortunately, but decades of knowledge in this business. So that is an exciting thing. I think that could be a really great fixture for not only just watching along with our broadcast, but keeping an eye on what's going on around the state. We'll be doing it live, kind of get behind the curtain with you and I as we're digesting all the news, the notes, and the scores from a nightly Friday football night, which, as we know, comes fast and furious. So, yeah, exciting stuff ahead.
That's going to be fun because you and I have discussed, like, I told you, I'm from South Carolina. They have a big, like, post-game show that gets blasted around the state. And there was nothing really like that in Pennsylvania. And so we're going to try to get something sort of like that. We're going to watch along, like Austin said, and try to, provide some tips and tidbits and commentary, as we watch and see what's developing during the night on Friday nights. That's going to be an exciting thing. That's one of the fun things, Austin, about working at PennLive for me. And one of the reasons I came here now, since almost like 8 years ago, is that we will try things and see what connects and stuff. So it's been fun. You're coming from a different area of the state. And one of the unique things is you got to see Matt Zolich play a lot. He's now the number 1 ranked quarterback in Pennsylvania. You're coming to an area where you're going to get to see Stone Saunders play. He's really the number 2 in a lot of people's rankings, and he has a chance to break, a lot of state passing records this year, which is something that we just went through last year because Alex Irvin from Steel High broke a lot of them. But you saw Matt Zayas a lot. We've talked about Stone here a lot. We've mentioned Matt, but you've seen him. Tell us about that kid, the number 1 quarterback in Pennsylvania, going to Missouri. What have you seen from him? And then tell us about some of those teams that you saw in your area of the state that we probably don't talk as much as we should. We should on here.
Yeah. So to let the people know where I was previously, I spent 18 years as the sports editor of the Mercury in Pottstown. So that would be District 1 country. So we're talking out in Philadelphia suburbs. So I would have made my way around District 1, really with my core being in the Pioneer Athletic Conference. So top school there would be Springford and their neighboring rival Perkiomen Valley. So yeah, as you stated, I would have seen a lot of Matt Zollers, basically his entire career. So I've seen his entire growth, going from, potentially promising quarterback to number 1 ranked quarterback in the state, highly recruited, going to Missouri. I was at his signing day. So it's been neat to see that growth of a prospect like him. And also that area is not known for putting out high level prospects. Even the ones that over the years that I felt like really, the record setting running back in that area, his name was Ryan Brumfield of O&J Roberts. He was, number 2 all time in the state back when he graduated in, let's say 2011. But even he only ended up at Eastern Michigan. So those top level recruits just were not native to that league.
I'm a District 1 alum, so tread lightly. I'm just kidding.
I didn't realize that, Dan. That's news to me.
I'm suburban 1 league.
That doesn't surprise me, actually. You know what? You seem like a suburban 1 guy. I don't know exactly what that means, but I can see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was cool to see, and it's really cool to see the growth, the annual growth of a top prospect like that, where last year you could really see that Matt had put in the work. That arm strength was there, the precision, he could hit the deep ball, and had a good set of receivers too. Had a state medalist sprinter for that deep ball, that they hit that in beautiful ways quite a lot. So yeah, great athlete though. Really, really cool to see his growth over these years.
Yeah, he came in here last year and lit up Cumberland Valley, and I watched that game, and that's the one we always joke. Tyree Smith, our stringer, called him the God of Thunder in his league because they were winning like 63-7 or something like that, I think, with like 9 minutes to go, and a storm came up, and it was too good that I couldn't take it out. I left it in. Tyree's called him the God of Thunder in print, and but I told the guys then, at the time, Dan, I think you had an offer from Old Dominion, right?
Yeah.
And I came back to the meeting was like, because I watched the game, and there was one where he pulled it on a quarterback keeper, it was an option play, and he looked like a deer running down the field, and then he had a couple where he drove some passes in there down the field. I was like, this guy's the real deal, and they were doubting me.
Yeah. Well, and then it briefly looked like he might be a guy Pitt might be able to get after because his brother played for the Pitt football team, but he ended up getting a little too good for both me and Austin's alma mater. So
I'm just messing with Dan. Dan was probably one of the few that was kind of on board with me at the time that we felt like Old Dominion was a little light on his offer list looking at him.
Although I started a pretty successful Old Dominion franchise in college football in 2025. So.
Epler may or may not have been a doubter at first, right, Dan?
I mean, I think Ep's just a guy that he needs to see it. He with his own eyes. He doesn't. I think Ep's an in-person guy. So
I'm messing with him too. But when I saw the kid, man, I was like, I tell everybody, Austin, I'm not the biggest X's. I've been doing this stuff 17. I tell people I'm not the biggest X's and those guys, but I know a guy when I see a guy, and I was like, this guy's a dude. So now he's going to go to Missouri. So
yeah, actually, to build off of that, I'm a big mentality guy too, and that's one of the big areas where I saw his growth is that you come in as starting varsity as an underclassman, and you hope you can do it. But then at a certain point when you reach that status, you can do it, and that you're the guy. And that was a big thing, that sign of growth I felt like watching that is junior year. And I think that goes for everybody in all pieces of athletics, but especially at the high school level. You're faking it till you make it early on, and then eventually you build that confidence in your ability and your knowledge, and then everything jumps off.
He's a pretty good basketball player too, right?
Yeah, he was kind of their X factor of he was a difference maker of whether they were going to be capable of making a state run, because the previous year he didn't play the previous year, but they made it to the state semifinals. And then this past year they were missing something, and then because he was out with a foot injury. But yeah, so he was the engine that kind of made that team go, even though they had like two star players. But Matt was the difference maker in that basketball team. So yeah, for sure, he's a very good athlete in both sports.
So Austin, you and something new for you too is we're a high school football podcast, but we talk about other stuff too. And Penn State football under you, and we got a new Pittsburgh Steelers writer out in Pittsburgh. Tell us a little bit about that too, stuff we can look at for PennLive from there, and what that's been like for you too. A lot of guys that played in the state now are playing for Penn State, so there's obviously a big following there, and people love the Steelers. So what's that been like for you, and what can people look for from there?
Yeah, it's exciting times here. With a refreshed group with the Penn State group, we have Bob Flounders and Johnny McGonigal staying on, but we've got Max Ralph now, who's recently out of Penn State and is based in Penn State, up in State College. So it's great to have boots on the ground with him. That team, that trio seems like it's going to really prime for a big year from a coverage standpoint with the team, and just trying to find fresh ways of providing diverse coverage for the readers and the people of Pennsylvania and beyond. And then, yeah, Nick Faribault has really came in flying on the Steelers beat for us. He's putting out a ton of stories each day. He's really embraced the appetite of the fan base. And it's clear from early on with how much traction Nick and his stuff has gained, that there is an appetite, and the people are, it's pretty clear to me that the people are happy that the Steelers beat is back on with PennLive. So yeah, I'm pleased with how things are going there, and I think we're for both for all three phases of our team. Football season is going to be a pretty big one. I'm having my hands full getting up to speed in all of it, but yeah, we got big things coming.
Well, you are the new sports boss here at PennLive. I wanted to get you on here. We'll probably have you come on the podcast here some more. Like you said, we're going to be doing the Friday night show. Is there anything else I haven't asked you, Austin? Anything else you wanted to talk about, touch on for the people before we let you go? Because I know you probably, Burke or Teresa's probably going to pull you in about 3 meetings or something today, on via phone call or whatever. So anything else that we could touch on here, my man?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's all good stuff. And yeah, you're right. There's a good chance that I will be pulled into some kind of meeting here. We here at PennLive do love our meetings. So yeah, no, that should be good, man. I love jumping on here, and as I get more embedded, more knowledge here, maybe I jump on here for the pod more often and dispel some wisdom and knowledge and things that I've learned here for about Central PA and hopefully beyond, because I think that is one thing that I think is worth saying here, is that I think what's cool about Brian, you really led a charge with that, and so has Eric with his statewide rankings, is that here with PennLive, we're not just doing Central PA. Yeah, that's our core, but we've got knowledge around the entire state, and so I think we're primed also for big things in that regard too, of really trying to keep our knowledge and be on the pulse of the entire state. So that's a great opportunity for everybody far and wide to be checking out what's going on with PennLive.
We killed the mid-Penn, but it's fun to be able to look around a state that's so talented in football and really highlight some of the top stuff there. Look, man, it's on now. I mean, you've been here, probably a month now, but man, we got a week to go, and we're going to be, next Friday we'll be on the show. Please tune in. I'm sure it's going to be a work in progress, because I don't think I'm a professional, and Austin's probably a little bit more polished than I am with that stuff, but we'll play it and We definitely want you guys to participate, watch along, let us know how we're doing there. We got scrimmages this weekend, Austin, which we'll have some stuff coming out of that. Got a ton of stuff next week. It's big times, man. It's go time here at Penn Live with a lot of this stuff. So, man, we're excited to have you. You and I have had some late night conversations, some early morning meetings that I've slept through on you already. But we're going to get it going, man, and we're excited to have you.
Appreciate it, man. Happy to be here. I've enjoyed it so far, and I will continue to enjoy it. So thanks, man.
All right, guys. So that was our guest this week, Austin Hertzog, our news sports editor. Obviously, we have a lot of exciting things coming up at Penn Live. Dan, I'm going to go back to you real quick because I thought you had one of the more fascinating stories to start this high school football season. We have these occasionally, but you just had a young man you did a story on who has a big-time college offer and has yet to play a varsity football down. Tell us about it real quick.
Yeah, Jerome LaRue Jr. on Bishop McDevitt. If that name sounds familiar, some high school football fans around District 3, it's because his dad, Jerome Sr., was a star at J.P. McCaskey. Really good running back who eventually went to prep school, committed to Arizona, but didn't end up going there. And his son seems like he's right on that trajectory. He's kind of small. He's like, I believe, 5'8", 160, but he been timed at a 4.4140. Virginia Tech's already offered him. I know he said Penn State and Maryland are right there. DeMarco Murray from Oklahoma has been in contact with him. If you run a 4.40 at 15 years old, I think a lot of teams are going to be after you. But what struck me talking to him was just as much, like how the offer and the speed and everything and the pedigrees. It seems like he's got a really good head on his shoulders too. He knows he's not going to play immediately. He's not going to be like a bell cow immediately. He's behind Maurice Barnes, who was kind of in a similar situation where he got offers early into his freshman year, but he had played a little bit. And Nas Jones-Davis, he's had probably max out about 10 touches a game this year for McDevitt, but open for more. We'll see what happens. But he was telling me stories about how his dad used to every day make him watch a different. He called them old school running backs, which made me feel a little old because some of the ones he was talking about were Reggie Bush and LaDainian Tomlinson. But he did say he loves Walter Payton too. That's one of his favorites, which tells you when a kid in 2024 is watching Walter Payton highlights. And I think they're really kind of passionate about the position. And we know the type of running backs McDevitt's produced. I believe the only high school in the country to produce two 10,000-yard rushers in the NFL. And LaShawn McCoy and Ricky Waters. And you don't want to put that kind of pressure on a kid like this, but I imagine we're going to be seeing him in space a lot to start his career, a lot of screens, a lot of bubble screens, things like that. And, as he fills out, I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't end up being one of the best football players in District 3 by, his junior, senior year. So really looking forward to seeing him out on the field because, again, we don't have any high school tape, but Virginia Tech and we know Brent Pry's probably got moles all throughout Central PA from his time at Penn State. So I think he probably catches wind of stuff pretty early. I imagine we will be writing a bunch of Jerome LaRue Jr. receives X Division I offer stories this year.
Yeah, 441, certainly. Epler, I'll say one of the big questions coming in this season was kind of like what they would have for Stone Saunders in his senior year. Obviously, their quarterback, the Kentucky commit the senior year, set up to possibly break a bunch of passing records, but they got to replace a lot on the offensive line. But now you start looking at the skill position, and you got Nazir Davis-Jones or Jones-Davis, I sometimes getting spun around, coming back, who went for over 1,000 yards total last year, receiving and rushing. Maurice Barnes ran for, over 790 yards and averaged about 6 yards a carry. Now you got this speedster, Dominic Diaz at wide receiver. You got Jonte Quick, who a lot of people don't forget as a freshman had a really nice season. So it's starting to look like they got some weapons around Stone. If that offensive line can get good, Bishop McDevitt could be really dangerous again.
Yeah, the skill position guys it's sort of an embarrassment of riches. And there's a couple guys too that are, we talk about LaRue being a new addition, obviously a young addition to McDevitt's offensive scheme. You mentioned Diaz, who is really sort of taken off in the recruiting game. Diaz is a guy who, was ineligible last year. Obviously came through and I know a lot of coaches are asking for film on Diaz, and it's like, well, he didn't really have film. Like he's been that kind of player. But they've also picked up, I guess we'll call him the transfer portal. A couple other guys too are going to really be marked for success right off the get go. I think Chris Thompson, the lineman from Trinity, is actually on board now to play defense. But as far as skill guys go, they got a transfer out of St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Julius Fuentes Bream, who is a really good rising sophomore who plays wide out and defensive back. Probably more suited to start out at defensive back, but he's a heck of an athlete. So he's going to be, and a guy who is going to, I think, really come in and make an immediate impact for them. Not so much a wide out, but maybe a defensive back is Shahid Clement, who comes over from Newman Grady. He can find a spot right off the get-go in the defensive secondary. 5'10" guy, 175, quick as heck, and obviously a ball hawk. He's a guy who's really seasoned too. So, there's going to be these guys, these options, and there's actually another freshman that's coming in. It's going to join the receiving corps. Really good. And these guys were all part of the Crusaders, youth football squad, and obviously LaRue is a big catch. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys pining for the football. It's almost like you forget about, because of the preseason, you forget about guys like Quick, who's probably going to wind up, put in the slot and is a dangerous guy. And Barnes, maybe 2 months ago, everybody's saying, okay, Barnes is going to be the kind of bell cow. I don't know. There's so many skill guys that McDevitt can use and the promise of it. So, maybe Barnes is more focused now on as a linebacker, because obviously he plays both.
Yeah.
And is a heck of an athlete. So they've got options, that's for sure.
But Jones Davis was really good last year too at running back. I thought he got better as the season went on. We know Barnes. So they got 3 guys who can tote it. Again, the young guy, I still expect, despite the speed, there's going to be an adjustment period to varsity football. So we'll see how that goes, but you can't teach that speed. But I still think, I wouldn't shock me to see Marty still get some carries. I would be excited to see him be able to focus on linebacker, and I know his dad listens. We believe he's a talented running back too, but we think he could be big time linebacker. And I think that's what colleges are thinking too with that kid. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. You brought up the transfers. A lot of attention was given to Harrisburg with all their big transfers.
Yeah.
Bishop McDevitt's right there too with the transfers. Obviously, the key with this is, I know several of those kids you mentioned are really early, really young in their careers with Bishop McDevitt, but as is all things with transfers, you put the names on the paper and you say, okay, well, this should make these teams real big time contenders. But I get so spun up with, I don't even know what, who if anybody will be available when the playoffs come or whatever.
Right.
Got to be a big key on, like, if these kids are allowed to play in the postseason in terms of what we're looking at. So that's something to be following. I know we're still following the Sean Lee situation.
Mm-hmm.
Have we heard any updates on that real quick? The quarterback for Harrisburg, for people who don't know around the state, this is a decision. He's got an eligibility hearing coming up with the PIAA at some point, and this could really, we brought this up on every podcast and probably will until it's settled, because he's a Pitt commit. Harrisburg's just ultra talented, and this could really determine the 6A landscape.
Yeah, it really could. And right now there's not a definitive date yet. I know the PIAA is trying to expedite this and get guys to get the committee members together. Remember, it's still the summer for them. They typically don't, come back or do anything business until early September. There's kind of a two-month window where they go out in June and then boom, come back in September or so. I know Doc Lombardi, executive director, is trying to get guys together for that. But right now, there's no definitive date set for that hearing. But I anticipate, probably within 7 to 10 days, it's got to happen. Obviously the season is fast approaching. We're probably about 12 days out, maybe 10 days out at this point. What's today's date? 4. Yeah. So we're about 10 days out from the start of the season, and there's another thing too. If the decision is, and again, it's obviously long shot based, we're basing that off of what the district vote was at 11-0, to deny his eligibility. So it certainly seems like a long shot that he will be deemed eligible. But if he does, you wonder too, how what's availability for him for at least the first couple of weeks. Has he gone through the mandatory heat week?
Well,
there's that period.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say is if I'm Harrisburg, even if you're like confident, even if you were confident that he was gonna like win this hearing thing, I would be going through and it sounds like they are going through practice with Mikhail Shank as the number one quarterback just to get.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, day one when they're running, Mikhail Shank took every snap.
Yeah, because he needs because if Sean Lee's back, he's a guy that started for 3 years. It still might be an adjustment period, but if he was able to get back, then he'd figure it out because he's an experienced kid. Mikhail Shank is going to need as many reps as possible if he's not.
Nothing against Mikhail Shank, but if Sean Lee does come back, obviously he's walking right into I ain't going under center.
Yeah,
that's just But Harrisburg has. We talk a lot about Harrisburg's versatility and guys like Quincy Brandon and Kabir Williams, and so and almost forgot is Nehemiah Ewell who rushed for 1,200 yards. So they've got a lot of offensive weapons too. Elias Koch on the outside. They got guys who can make plays regardless of if Lee Jr. is there or not. So they'll be ready. I mean, they'll be ready offensively. It is a shame that this is sort of dragged on until inches before the regular season starts, because it just having that unknown just causes I think a little bit of mayhem throughout, and not just at Harrisburg. I think the other teams would really like to game plan knowing whether number 8's on the field or not.
We've got a lot of content up on Penn Live, guys, and that's why I was just looking. You got a pretty good story out there on Brady Heiser, the talented quarterback from Gettysburg.
Yeah.
One of the big things you do every year is your preseason statewide rankings. You've got those out there, and then you'll be doing those through the season at PennLive.com. Real quick on the statewide rankings, anything jumping out to you there on this preseason look at the state?
Well, if we're starting in the small school classes too, but we had Matt Sig on last week at Fort Cherry. I didn't let the cat out of the bag for him, but they're going to be a powerful force again in the Western PA. But Westinghouse is a school. It's interesting because we've seen the development of Westinghouse just sort of come quickly in the last two or 3 years, and it was always sort of stay away from the District 8 squads. Obviously, the city schools in Pittsburgh, there's only 5, I think now. There were 6. So, you always sort of tread lightly when sometimes you'd say, okay, they got an incoming class now that's going to be good in a couple of years, but they were always overshadowed by the Whitfield. So having Westinghouse ranked at number 1 in single A, which of course they're down to single A this year. They were in the finals in 2A last year. That's a big boon there. I think Southern Columbia is still the talk of 2A until somebody proves otherwise. But we do have a couple of mid-Penn teams mixed in there. Camp Hill being one of them in the late half. It's still sort of the standard teams that are reloaded, and obviously we start every season talking about St. Joe's Prep in 6A. I do believe that there will be a little bit more push toward the Hawks this year. Pittsburgh Central Catholic's obviously wildly talented. And the same for a couple of District 1 teams out of Philly.
6A is loaded. I was going to bring that up. 6A, 6A top 10, Epler, St. Joe's Prep 1, Pittsburgh Central Catholic 2, Central Bucks West 3, Harrisburg 4. Probably a lot higher if they have Sean Lee.
Yeah, they would have been a step or two higher. Well, the fact is, if Sean Lee's back, Harrisburg's perched number 2. I think they're right on par with PCC. But the inclusion here of Imhotep, the rise of Imhotep, is very makes it very, very interesting. Because you could, these 6A schools too, like District 3, 7, us, Pittsburgh, and Philly. These guys win their districts and they go right into state semifinals. So you sort of start there and you target those top 4 teams. But now the inclusion of Imhotep muddies that up a little bit more. 6A is going to be very interesting.
Look, Nazareth is 6. Their quarterback, Peyton Falzoni, is a Virginia Tech commit, Dan. Ford is 9th. Matt Zollers is the number 1 quarterback in the state in a lot of people's rankings, right? He's going to Missouri. North Allegheny's in there, which is always tough, at 8.
Yep.
Downingtown West, 7. Central York, 10. That's a loaded LaSalle College you got in teams to watch here. And they got a quarterback who's going to Rutgers, right? In Rutgers, Gavin Sidwalk.
Yeah, their offense is pretty loaded.
So 6A is a buzzsaw this year.
Yeah.
And that's not always been the case. You could. I mean, again, you always start with St. Joe's Prep just because they're always loaded. Their cupboard's always full, and obviously they've been dominating 6A since since 6A became a thing in 2006, since the expansion. So 6A is going to be a lot more interesting this year, I believe, for that spot to kind of get to meet the Hawks. At least, like I said, the inclusion in MOTEP makes it so even more so this year. So that 6A is going to be very, very interesting. To be honest, 5A, we say this every year for 5A, and it's even more true now with Bishop McDevitt being bumped up through the competition formula. 5A is going to be a wild shootout like every year for the past, I'd say 3-4 years. There is a lot of strength in Philadelphia in Class 5A. Ultimately, we decided on Ruston and Chester being sort of the top two, but Garnet Valley's always tough. They've been a ranking staple for the past 5 years, really. And Strathaven's always a team. It's a semifinal team last year. So there's a lot of strength in Philly this year in 5A. So McDevitt's got, in 4A, you're used to marking McDevitt automatically reaching that semifinal. And that there's still obviously going to be a favorite in 5A, but facing a Cocalico or something like that in the playoffs now, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I know McDevitt always has grand plans to win states every year, and that's certainly the goal this year. But up in 5A now, it becomes an even tougher task.
You look at number one there, you got Roman Catholic, who's I feel like been sort of waiting to break out in the last couple of years. They got Samaj Beals at quarterback. He's still young. I think he's still just a junior. He's got an Alabama offer. I said it before. He's kind of built, looks like a Bryce Young to me, with the quick release, a strong arm. Not the biggest guy. I think he's probably at about 6'2" now, though, but he's not the biggest guy. Like, he's kind of a little wiry, but he can sling it. And to have an Alabama offer when Nick Saban was still there, by the way,
Right.
a little bit about him and what he might be able to do. Peters Township stuff. Chester is interesting because I've been, doing the statewide stuff I do with like top performances. They've had some kids where they've slowly been some young guys who came on there about 2 years ago, and they've put up a lot of points and stuff in different games and some numbers. So they've slowly been building towards something. So this would be, I think, the year for them to maybe really have a breakout. And I guess they went 12-2 last year, which I didn't even realize. So they had a good year last year. So, it is a very interesting bracket. I think also interesting, Pine Richlands down there, teams to watch to tell you kind of like how we know they'll be tough. They'll probably be in the mix at the end. I could see that them being right there at the end. So.
Yeah, the consensus really was, and after looking at it and chatting with people out in Western PA, and that Peters Township was sort of just a step above, but there's going to be this scrum, and again, this is nothing different for 5A. There's going to be this scrum sort of for the second spot, or at least to kind of challenge Peters Township and teams like Woodland Hills and Pine Richland, and even Penn Trafford. Which I think I marked in teams to watch as well. There's going to be this just push to kind of. There were really 5 teams, and you could include Upper St. Clair, which I did not include in the preseason rankings. But depending on who you ask, Upper St. Clair could probably be a preseason top 10 pick as well. I mean, they certainly were in the discussion for my preseason poll.
Real quick, looking at 4A, you got the Clips up there. Obviously, there's been a battle whether or not they would have to move up.
Right.
I'm glad they get to stay in 4A. I thought it was always a little silly that they were voluntarily moved up on their own from 1A to 4A, and then the PIAA was trying to make them play up again. They got Taki Hayes, the Penn State commit, and a Max Preps All-American this week at running back. But I'll tell you another one that jumps off to me. McKeesport has got this running back, the sophomore Ken Monspell, who just committed to Penn State. And if you turn on the film, I mean, he can ride, okay? That kid can get gone, So, and we know that they're McKeesport. I feel like McKeesport and Aliquippa, and I in my mind feel the same. They're sort of like these gritty teams with great athletes. So I'm excited to see what McKeesport can do too, man. But with that kid running the rock, two of the state's best running backs in your top three in those rankings. And oh, by the way, Jersey Shore, which is always good, right in the middle of them.
Yeah, Jersey Shore. I mean, Tom Gravish, obviously, people around here saw him, obviously, in the Big 33, coaching the Big 33 this year. He runs an exceptional program. And this is one of those sort of, I always, we see a lot of these town teams that are always good. We certainly got to see one last year, Dallas against McDevitt, and these teams that pop up. Jersey Shore has popped up years ago under Gravish, and they just keep sort of presenting these guys who run through walls for the guy, and that collects a lot of W's. When you have everybody on the same page, we hear coaches talk about it all the time. Rowing in the same direction. That's Jersey Shore to a T under Tom Gravish, and so yeah, you can't dismiss them. They've certainly had some key losses, but who hasn't? You're always going to be presented with a couple key position guys. But I think they're right around like 6-6, 7-7 returning starters on both sides. So they're going to be good again, and they're going to contend. So yeah, and really in 4A it was a question of why I'm missing. Why I'm missing is obviously why I'm missing in Twin Valley are going to be our sort of district favorites, and so it was a question of where to put why I'm missing. Who's obviously made a state title appearance in the last couple of years, and are always district favorites for us. So it's interesting. I know people don't always accept the rankings and where teams fall, but I always say rankings are made to move. That's why we play this. That's why we play this season. Yeah. But I'm really sure that the teams ranked at the head of each class are really sort of a step above. You get in this small school, it's a little bit different. There's going to be a lot of competition, but Aliquippa, St. Joe's Prep, and the likes. It's the same scenario for them. You've got to come and get that.
Yeah, they're basically. I feel like those are two where it's kind of if you were a sports book and you were offering futures, you do St. Joe's Prep versus the Field, and I feel like it'd still be hard to. I still imagine the Field would be plus money, and I don't know if Aliquippa maybe in 4A might not be plus money, but it might be pretty darn close to it. So
I think Aliquippa and St. Joe's Prep would probably be the two only minus. Yeah, with a minus ahead of their number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm most excited about that 6A. Looking at 3A, I have not watched the film, the level of film I did last year. I need to get back on that grind, but I don't know a ton about the 3A class right now. Central Valley, you guys won, but I wanted to talk about these a little bit. Obviously, check out his full rankings and see if your team's in there at PennLive.com. Guys, we're going to talk about some all-stars and stuff too, but we've been going almost an hour now. So people know we go to 2 podcasts per week when the season begins. So next week,
and you'll get to see our beautiful mugs, Mr. Three Jacker, myself.
Absolutely,
yeah.
We'll split into 2 a week where Epler and Dan will be in studio early in the week, and then me and the young guys, Evan Wheaton and a new member to our team, I believe, will be doing a podcast. Also during the season, we'll come together for some big topics. We'll come together for like mid-season stuff. Anytime, I'm sure we'll be back together when we get this Harrisburg decision. We'll all kind of talk about that because that's really is, guys, I think has a chance to determine. Like if Harrisburg has Sean Lee, again, guys, I know St. Joe's is St. Joe's, but they got a lot of turnover from last year. I might be taking Harrisburg if they can, and if Messiah Mickens and Deontay Sheffy and those kids can play in the playoffs, which I asked Cal when they transfer Cal Everett, they would be able to, and he says he wasn't sure yet. But if they can get all those kids playing, I might take a Harrisburg. I know we've had that discussion before, so it's going to be that's the biggest storyline in my mind heading into the season, whether or not that kid's going to be able to play, because it really could determine a lot. But we got a lot going on. We'll have the 2 podcasts starting next week. You guys are still rolling out. We've had mid-Penn preseason all-stars. We've had divisional breakdowns for stars from each division, the top players from each division in the mid-Penn. We got some more statewide stuff coming, and not just football. We got other fall sports. We got a ton of stuff coming. Like I said, you guys have written some pretty good stories here, and so we got a lot to talk about next week and the week after. And maybe we probably will get together a little bit next week too to talk about some of these all stars. I think.
Yeah.
But you'll start getting 2 podcasts from us per week starting next week, guys. It's football season. I can't believe it. You guys are going out to some scrimmages this weekend.
Yes, well, 3 of us will be out checking out some scrimmages this week. Dan, myself, and Tom.
Yeah,
Where are you guys planning to go?
I'm going Camp Hill, Susquehanna Township. I feel like they tend to play each other a lot in these scrimmages, and they're not really like super game structured. I think it's more just one team gets 20 reps, other team gets 20, things like that. But it's always fun to see. I'm finishing. It'll be up by the time this podcast airs. But I caught up with Drew Brandstetter earlier this week, and a guy that I've been I think singing the praise of for a couple of years now, and this is his first year that he's focused solely on football. So excited to see how he looks, and as well as TD Evans and Lex Cyrus. So that should be a good one.
That's 2 exciting offenses, really. Because we always said Epler in the past with Hannah, we know they got the weapons. Could the offensive line do it? I look at the offensive line; they got 2 good guys. Linder Mack has had a really good offseason. I think he won MVP at the Penn State camp. Mason Lubbold is up there too. So if they can get a couple other guys, Hannah might really surprise some people this year.
Yeah, it's really about at Susquehanna last I 5, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. It's really been about the depth of the guys up front too. That's real. I mean, you can present the starting 5, but if guys are going both ways and things like that, especially in the dog days of late August and September, finding that 6th, 7th, and 8th lineman that can spell them is important, and that's something Susquehanna Township has struggled with, from the last couple of years. So I think they have those guys. I think they do. They can develop those guys and be a lot more consistent. That's really the name of the game for Hannah. If they can find that consistency, they're certainly talented on the edges, and they're talented under center. And TD Evans, and again, Dan and I have talked about this a couple times on the podcast. I think TD Evans is in for a big year, and I think that's one of the teams to beat in that division for sure.
They got to replace, I think, a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher in Dorian Smith, who ended up on the Big 33 team. But again, they got 2 of the better linemen, I think, coming into the year up front on offense. And if they can find a couple others, they really could put up some points. Who you want to see up?
I'm going to be at Lower Dolphin at Central Dolphin.
Okay.
I'm going to check out the Falcons and see what they have. CD obviously is coming off a 5-6 year where they got beat by Central York in the first round of districts, and obviously it's been I would call it a couple frustrating years for them. And that's something we're not used to seeing at a Central Dolphin, and it just they're unlucky at times the past couple of years, and with some injuries and things like that. But they are rebuilding in a lot of ways, and but Coach Mack hasn't been around for 25 years just for his looks, so he knows what he's doing. So it'll be interesting to see, and obviously there's some high expectations at LD this year.
Yeah,
with obviously Burton's back at quarterback, and they've got a couple nice skill positions. They have to obviously replace one of Dan's favorite guys, Ty Milheims. So there's a lot to like coming back to the Falcons, and I really like how Josh Borelli's running that program too.
He won Coach of the Year for us one year. I mean, he took over a program that couldn't win a game, and I don't think anybody will sit and argue with you that they've been the most talented roster wise, but they've been competitive, at times, and that's been a big improvement. I think Borelli's done a nice job. We've had this discussion, and I mean, Central Dauphin is one of the more fascinating teams in this area in Central Pennsylvania, to me, for us, because I think in 2019 we said they were playing in a state title game for 6A. They beat Will Howard, who's now the quarterback at Ohio State, to get there.
Right.
And it's probably been the quietest off season for Central Dauphin. They've had a couple rough years, but even having those rough years, they had the Anthony Robb Sox and and the kids who were college prospects and stuff, they would have a few names and guys returning. I don't know. They have those big name guys coming back this year. A guy you can say, "Oh, that's their guy."
Right.
It's really fascinating because we know. I mean, again, a couple years ago we did like all decade, and McNamee won Coach of the Decade, and so they've had a traditionally strong program that's been just kind of so the last 3 or 4 years, and now they've had a quiet off season. I'm really excited to kind of see, whether it's positive or negative for Central Dolphin fans, what they have coming out the gates this year and what they got. So they are fascinating to me. So look, we'll be out at the scrimmages this week. Big week, like we said, we're going to be rolling out a ton of content, some new shows on Friday, to the podcast, just tons of stuff. Check us out at PennLive.com. Follow Eric on X or Twitter. Epler, tell them how to find you.
I'm at 3Jacker.
Dan, tell them how to find you on social.
Dan_Sostek.
At X.com or Twitter. I still call it Twitter. And I'm at Sports by B. Linder at Twitter, X.com. Till next week, we'll see you guys then. And hopefully we can update you and let you know whether or not Dan scores against me again before we get to the next podcast.
The UPMC sports medicine experts in Central PA are here to help keep you in the game and improve your quality of life, no matter your age or activity level. Visit upmc.com/Central PA SportsMed to learn more.